The metallic hum of the spaceport pulsed like a heartbeat to the hangar's ribs, a cathedral of steel and light. Rows of ships stood in dormant formation, sleek beasts awaiting command. Elias Crane crouched beneath one, a torque wrench in hand, sweat dripping onto the grid floor despite the chill of the air. His hands worked with practiced efficiency, coaxing a stubborn thruster coupling into place. To most, he was just another human tech, forgotten in the crevices of empire. Boot steps echoed, sharp and rhythmic, slicing to the mechanical ambience. Elias didn't look up. He didn't need to. The scent of imported floral oils, the particular cadence of confidence masquerading as entitlement. He knew who it was. Out of the way, human. The voice cut through him like a blade of ice. General Delara Vex stood over him, her skin a shade of emerald kissed by obsidian, eyes sharp enough to draw blood. Her armor glistened under the overhead lights, part ceremonial, part lethal. She radiated command, and she knew it. Elias wiped his hands, rose slowly and stepped aside. "Didn't see you there," he said, voice level. "Clearly. That helmet is worth more than your entire rations for a year." She sneered, adjusting the black and gold headgear under her arm. "I suppose I should thank the Empire for its generosity, employing your kind as wrench monkeys." He met her eyes, not defiant, not submissive, just still. "We do what we're good at." Thalara's lips twitched, not quite a smile. "I imagine that list is very short." He said nothing, turning back to his tools. She lingered, unsatisfied with the lack of reaction. That was the problem with humans, she thought. They were far too patient. And patience, in her experience, meant either cowardice or cunning. "I want the Valkyrie prepped and flight-ready in 2 hours," she said, brushing past him toward her ship, a sleek Interceptor-class vessel resting like a predator at rest. "If it's so much as sputters, I'll have your hide strung up in engineering." "Yes, ma'am." She paused mid-stride, gaze flicking back. "That tone. You've got a streak of insolence buried in there. I hear it. Do you think because I can't see it, I won't punish it?" "I think you'll do what you need to do," Elias said quietly, never turning. "Like I will." Her eyes narrowed. That should have been submission. Instead, it tasted like a challenge. Before she could retort, the overhead lights flickered. A low chime sounded from the port's mainframe, the alert tone for a classified transmission. All around them, personnel paused mid-task. A voice followed, cold and clipped. "Attention! All command units. Report to strategic operations. Level red breach logged. Repeat, level red. Do not delay." Delara frowned. "What now?" She moved with purpose, passing Elias without a glance. As she disappeared into the corridor, the noise resumed. Tools clanked. Engines whirred. But Elias stayed still, watching the corridor long after she vanished. Behind his calm exterior, something churned. 2 hours later, the Valkyrie stood ready, polished to a mirror gleam. Elias finished the last calibration and tucked his tools into the maglock belt at his hip. He ran a hand along the ship's hull, as though reading something only he could see. Then he looked toward the corridor again. He had grown used to the Empire's hierarchy, used to the way aliens like Delara treated humans like footnotes in someone else's story. But today had shifted something. Not because of the insult. He had heard worse from kinder faces. No, it was her certainty, the unshakable belief that he was beneath her. That belief was dangerous. He pulled a small data chip from his pocket, slid it into the port behind the ship's navigation console, and whispered, "Let's see how high up the ladder this goes." Outside, Delara returned with 2 officers in tow, her expression sharp and unreadable. She gave Elias the briefest glance. "Get off the deck," she said. "We launch in 15. He nodded once, unhooked his belt, and walked away. Her voice followed, low to one of her companions. "He gives me a bad feeling. You want us to pull him?" "No," she said after a moment. "I want to know what he's hiding." Elias stepped into the shadows at the edge of the hangar, the torque wrench still in his hand. Behind him, the Valkyrie began to power up, lights sweeping over its hull like scanning eyes. She thought he was hiding something. She was right, and soon she'd find out just how wrong she'd been. The stars outside the command deck windows blurred into streaks as the Valkyrie hurtled through hyperspace. Inside, the hum of the engines was steady, almost soothing, an illusion of peace that belied the tension coiling in the air. Delara Vex sat rigid in the pilot's seat, her fingers hovering over the controls, though the ship needed no direction from her now. Autopilot was engaged. The destination was already set. She stared at the datapad in her lap, its screen flooded with encrypted files. The transmission from Strategic Operations had shaken even her. A level red breach was not routine, not for a base as far from any contested system. Someone had extracted internal intel from the Empire's classified databases. That someone was skilled enough to leave no trace, but not skilled enough to escape suspicion entirely. And somehow, the trail led to her hangar, her ship. Her eyes flicked at the console. The diagnostics reported no anomalies. Maintenance logs clean. Flight path unaltered. Still, something gnawed at her. She tapped the intercom. Bridge to maintenance. Elias Crane report. Silence answered. She tried again. Crane respond. Nothing. Her jaw tightened. He was probably off duty or ignoring her. Neither option sat well. She switched channels, rerouted through internal logs. According to the ship's tracker, Elias had never left. His ID was still pinging from within the hull, near the navigation core. Delara stood swiftly, her boots clicking sharply as she stalked through the corridor. Lights followed her in staggered rows, cold and clinical. The ship felt too quiet, as though it were holding its breath. She found him leaning against the navigation bay door, arms folded, face half-lit by the ambient glow. His eyes were on her before she even spoke. "You're not supposed to be here," she said. "You didn't check the maintenance schedule." He shrugged. "Core recalibration. Orders came down before launch." "I gave no such order." "Didn't come from you." She studied him, tension curling at the corners of her mouth. "You know, there's something about your timing that bothers me. The breach. The lack of any explanation. The fact you're always there when something's out of place." "I'm a mechanic," he said flatly. "Things being out of place is my job. Don't insult both of us." He tilted his head. "Then stop pretending you don't already know what you came here to ask." She stepped closer. "You've been poking around the Valkyrie systems. Your access logs don't match your clearance level. You had someone check my logs. I had someone check everyone's. But yours were interesting." Elias turned slowly and pressed a panel beside him. The navigation door slid open, revealing the heart of the ship's control matrix. Pulsing blue energy, wires bundled like veins, all humming with motion. He stepped inside, not waiting for her to follow. She did. She had to. "I didn't breach your data," he said, circling the console. "I need to." She watched him warily. "Then who did?" He looked at her now, directly. "You did." Her expression barely flickered. "You're out of your depth." "I don't think so." He inserted a thin device into the port. A hologram flared to life above the core. Files, movement logs, strategic deployment plans, Empire fleet positioning, civilian surveillance protocols. "You encrypted this. I watched the trail you left behind. You weren't stealing intel for yourself. You were hiding what someone else had already taken." Thalara's voice dropped into a hiss. "That information is sealed by the Directorate." "I know. And you access it anyway?" "I watched you do it." He stepped closer. The air between them sparked, not with attraction, but with threat, something ancient and bitter and coiled too long. "You were covering for someone," he continued, "or you were ordered to clean up a mess. But you didn't clean it well enough. And now we're both sitting in a warship heading toward empty space, while Command decides what to do about the loose ends." She didn't answer. The glow from the core painted her features in sharp relief. For the first time, she looked less like a commander and more like someone cornered. "You think I'm the loose end," she said finally. "No," Elias replied. "You're the carrier. I'm the one holding the blade." She moved, fast as lightning, hand at his throat, but he caught her wrist mid-strike, his grip unshakable. For a moment, they were statues locked in balance, neither one yielding. Then she dropped her arm, stepping back. Why? She asked. Why are you doing this? He let go slowly. Because you looked at me like I was nothing. And then you made the mistake of believing it. Her laugh was dry, bitter. So this is about pride? It's about proof. Elias reached into his jacket and pulled out a black chip, sleek, unmarked. He held it up between them. This contains everything you tried to bury. Names, commands, orders issued under shadow clearances. I didn't steal it. I recovered it. The difference matters. She stared at the chip. Her throat worked as if swallowing something jagged. What do you want? Not what you think. He tucked the chip away. I want a witness. Someone who stood on the other side and saw the truth. Someone who can't lie about what's coming. She shook her head. You think I'd testify for you? No, he said. I think you're going to help me burn this empire to the ground. The Valkyrie's lights dimmed as it approached the edge of system space, where calms died and shadows thrived. Behind them, the past was closing in. Ahead, the reckoning waited. The Valkyrie emerged from hyperspace into a dead zone. No stars, no stations, just a yawning black. A pulse of static ran to the hull as it decelerated, like a held breath being released. Delara sat in the command seat, hands steady, but her mind whirred like a damaged drive coil. Across from her, Elias stood before the auxiliary controls, not watching her but tracking system data. His presence was unshakable now, like a fault line that had finally cracked open. This is where you brought us? She asked, tone measured. There's nothing here. Not to the eye, he replied, without turning. That's the point. She narrowed her gaze. Then show me. Elias keyed a sequence into the panel. A flicker shimmered on the view screen, barely perceptible at first, then growing into a geometric outline. A structure emerged from a void, cloaked by refractive shielding. Massive, angular, scarred from old battles. It drifted like a ghost, a black site installation, one not listed on any official map. I thought this place was dismantled, Delara muttered, more to herself than to him. That's the lie they told Command. In truth, it's where the Directorate stores failed projects. Failed people. Thalara's lips parted slightly. She knew the name of the facility now, though it hadn't passed her thoughts in years. Facility 9 Row, the birthplace of experimental divisions that tested the edges of ethics and science alike. You were one of them, she said slowly. Elias didn't answer immediately. Instead, he watched the shadows flicker across the screen, as though he could see past the metal, into the lives still buried there. They took us young, or desperate, promised us advancement, salvation, escape. Then they rewired us, reprogrammed what it meant to be human. And you escaped. No one escapes. We're just misplaced, discarded. His voice was calm, too calm, the kind of calm that comes after all the screaming's been exhausted. She leaned forward. If this place is still operational, why bring me here? Because you're not afraid of blood, he said. And you know how the Empire works. You've cleaned up messes before. I want you to see the worst of it. And then what? You decide. Delara crossed her arms, but her fingers curled tighter than she intended. You think dragging me into your trauma will make me your ally? I think showing you the Empire's true face will make you choose which one you can live with. The Valkyrie's comms panel blinked. A signal was being received. Not words, just a ping. A request for biometric access. Elias moved first, placing his hand on the scanner. The screen lit green. Still works, he murmured. The ship docked without resistance. No turrets activated. No alarm sounded. It was as if the station had been waiting for him. The inner corridors of 9 Row were colder than the void outside. Lights flickered in long-forgotten hallways. The metal floor creaked underfoot. Decades of dust had settled on consoles, but the air filtration still ran, humming quietly like a heart that refused to die. They passed rooms sealed by faded warnings. Some bore scorch marks. Others etched numbers. One door bore a handprint in dried black, smudged but unmistakably human. Delara stayed close, her movements quieter than before. Her usual bravado had been swallowed by the weight of this place. She wasn't a general here. She was a witness. Elias stopped at a junction. A room loomed at the end, larger, still powered. Its door stood open, light spilling into the corridor. "This is where they programmed the simulations," he said. "Ran scenarios. Inserted false memories. Trained operatives to believe in causes that didn't exist." Dolores stepped inside. The walls were lined with neural interfaces, some still active. Holographic reels looped silently. Propaganda, death drills, identity resets. What were they building here? Soldiers who wouldn't question. Agents who would die believing the lies in their heads. She stared at one reel, a child in a uniform saluting an officer with no face. "And what about you?" Elias touched the wall, as if grounding himself. "I was defective. I remembered." Silence fell between them, thick and stifling. Delara turned to him, something sharper than pity in her eyes. "You could have run, disappeared." "I did, but I kept remembering." His voice dropped, not with weakness, but with a resolve that vibrated beneath the surface. "And then I saw you, just another officer, another cog, but smart, ambitious, a survivor. And I thought, maybe if I showed you, you'd understand what you're helping keep alive." Delara didn't move for a long moment. Then, slowly, she stepped to one of the interface chairs, and "Saturday, show me." Elias hesitated, then activated the node. Data surged around them. Images, sound, memories captured in digital fragments. Not just his. Dozens of them. Children trained to kill. Families silenced. Dissidents rewritten. And then, amidst it all, a name. Crane. Delara frowned. "That's not your real name." "No," he said. "It was the name they gave me after the wipe. I only remember the old one last year." "Then who were you before?" He looked at her, eyes steady. "I was the one who saw too much." The projection ended. The silence that followed wasn't hollow. It was judgmental. Delara stood, her face unreadable. "So what now?" "I destroy this place," Elias said, "and the files that tie it to command. But I need someone inside to finish what comes next. Someone they won't suspect. Someone who can make them bleed from within. And if I refuse, then I detonate the ship and make sure the explosion reaches orbit. This whole system will know something was here." Her jaw clenched. She was used to power plays. But not this kind. Not from someone who had nothing left to lose. Finally, she said, "If I do this, I'm dead either way." He nodded. "Not if we rewrite the ending." Outside, the Valkyrie waited in silence, orbiting a graveyard that had pretended to be forgotten. And above it all, the Empire kept watching, still believing its ghost would never speak again. The flames began in the heart of 9, Rose data vault, silent, clean, controlled. No fanfare, just systems failing in precise succession. Files reduced to static. Surveillance memories erased like breath on glass. Elias stood in the control hub, watching the progress bar crawl toward completion. Every percentage point a cut in the Empire's throat. Behind him, Delara spoke into a secured channel, her voice calm, rehearsed, surgically convincing. "This is General Vex. A failed recon sequence caused a breach in power systems aboard Valkyrie. The facility at Site 9 road destabilized during auto-defense reactivation. No survivors recorded. Operation concluded." She ended the transmission without waiting for acknowledgement. "They'll believe it," Elias said. "They'll need to believe it." She stepped back from the console, face taut, posture that of a woman tightening invisible armor. It gave them a clean ending. They won't chase ghosts if the story fits their agenda. Elias powered down the terminal and turned toward her. For a moment, he just looked. There was no trace of the smug, condescending officer he'd first met. Only a soldier weighed down by truth, one who had crossed a line she couldn't uncross. "They'll watch you now," he said. "Not openly, but the directorate will circle closer. They always do." "I know," she replied. "And still," Delara nodded once. "I go back. I play my role. And I sharpen the blade you gave me." They left 9 row together, walking through corridors that now hummed with a death knell. Lights dim behind them. Doors sealed with finality. The station had become a tomb, not just for bodies, but for the Empire's illusions. On board the Valkyrie, silence reigned. Elias sat at the navigation console, while the Lara prepped the outbound jump. Her hands moved quickly, efficiently, but there was a tremor now. Not fear. Something deeper. Anticipation layered with doubt. "You don't have to return," Elias said, watching her. "We could vanish. There are systems beyond the fringe, places they've forgotten." "And what then?" she said, not looking at him. "We hide, while this machine keeps grinding people down." He didn't answer. She initiated the hyperspace drive. The stars blinked once, then twisted into streams. "I used to believe in order," she said suddenly, voice low. "In strength through structure. But order built on erasure isn't discipline. It's rot." Elias leaned back, eyes on the warp space outside. "You were always smarter than your rank." She allowed herself the faintest smile. "You were always more dangerous than your silence." They traveled in quiet after that, the kind that didn't demand conversation. Their path led toward the central systems, back into the lion's den. And though the ship bore no outward change, both of them knew the Valkyrie had become something else. A blade returned to the sheath, waiting. Upon arrival at Citadel Prime, the Lara walked the polished corridors like she had 100 times before, but each step now had weight. Eyes followed her. Subordinates greeted her with the usual clipped precision. No one questioned her account. The Directorate, as expected, filed the mission as classified loss, no inquiry. She resumed command within the week. Reports flowed. Orders passed through her hands. Her face remained cold, composed. But every now and then, she would linger just slightly too long on a phrase, a name, a sealed approval that no longer carried meaning. And beneath her skin, the blueprint of another future was taking shape. Elias vanished from public record. A mechanical failure logged in hangar files. No body recovered. No questions asked. But he was not gone. Messages arrived in encrypted bursts, brief, sharp, and precise. Slices of information fed into the Directorate's underbelly. Memos forwarded anonymously to dissident channels. Photos of forgotten operatives. Coordinates of research sites closed decades ago. The Empire's foundation, brick by brick, began to shake. One evening, the Lara found a data chip embedded in a maintenance report. No signature. Just a single phrase in human standard. "They forgot we were watching." She closed her fingers around it and walked to her quarters, her mind already rewriting the next chain of command, weighing which fractures could become cracks, which cracks could become collapse. They had been enemies by default, soldier and mechanic, power and dispossession. But now they were something else. Not allies, not friends. Co-conspirators in a slow, exacting vengeance. The kind the Empire never saw coming, because it never thought the forgotten could remember.